Well, that's awesome. Well, I went back in my genre week to something too.
Yeah. Ooh, okay.
Something we have covered on the podcast and something that I mentioned in our 1950s top 5. And it is a little ditty that you just love called Curse of the Demon. Night of the Demon is actually the British title, but over here we called it Curse of the Demon. It was directed by Jacques Tourner, who, of course, did Cat People and I Walked with a Zombie. He met Val Lewton shortly before this, who was the new head of RKO at the time, and he asked Tourner to be his first director that he hired for RKO. I know you're not crazy about this movie because of the monster that's in it, and we've spoke at length that the monster in it was added post by the studio. Jacques Tourner was against it as well. Jacques a very moody director, does a lot with shadow and light. It was written by Charles Bennett, who was a frequent Hitchcock collaborator, but it's based on the M.R. James story, Casting the Runes. Stars Dana Andrews, Peggy Cummings, Niall MacGinnis, who played the evil Dr. Karswell that was based on Aleister Crowley. It's funny, you and maybe another person or two will say, "Ooh, that movie's terrible." But I have more people comment to me, "Oh my God, I love that movie. That movie is so great." And I was trying to figure out, why it is that you don't like it and that I do and that others do. And I made some notes that it's a landmark in the horror history for pedigree alone, obviously, all the people I just mentioned.
Yep.
But I think it's a bridge from Universal movies to Hammer movies.
I could see that.
It's noirish, like black and white noir stuff, like Universal.
Yeah.
Because Universal was predominantly black and white with the monsters and stuff. But it's dealing with a newer subject matter, which is satanic worship. I did watch an old Universal the other day that has Satanism in it that I did not know of. But this one, to me, was one of the first movies where it was forefront with the whole Dr. Carswell guy. The demon's clunky, as I said, and he was against it. But it reminds me of a cross between like a gargoyle and Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's very stiff, like a gargoyle.
Stiff would be an understatement.
Like it's on wheels, and they're pushing it toward the camera.
Well, let me ask. Help me remember. Is this the one that has like the car chase in part of it? In the rambling, the guy leaves the satanic ritual in his car and gets like attacked.
I think you're thinking of The Devil Rides Out, but there is a car wreck in this one where a guy slams into a telephone pole and gets like electrocuted or whatever. He gets killed.
Right. Okay.
So
and then there's the train. There is
the train
where you're giving the runes to people, and the runes.
He's trying to pass them, and he's trying to pass them back to Carswell. Yes,
because they're genuinely cursed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you hold that paper, you're going to die. But what I was going to say is, even though the monster's kind of clunky, I think it was probably pretty scary to people back in the day. I mean, I would
definitely think so.
It's very memorable.
This was, I think we even mentioned it on the podcast, that this was the first time we could remember, really satanic rictuals being...
Right. Like I said, I have since seen another Universal movie where they have it, but I did not know of that Universal at the time. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, it's called The Black Cat. And it's on our list. So, and I think somebody pointed that out to me in a comment back when we covered this. And it's on our list. We'll look at that because I liked it, actually. Mm-hmm. It had both Bela Lugosi and Karloff in it.
Right.
Anyway, I think this movie was probably pretty scary to people, especially those unfamiliar with the occult and Satanism and it being their initiation. A synopsis is American professor John Holden arrives in London for a conference on parapsychology, only to discover that the colleague he was supposed to meet was killed in a freak accident. Mm-hmm. It turns out the deceased colleague had been investigating a cult led by Julian Karswell. Though a skeptic, Holden is suspicious of the devil-worshipping Karswell. Following a trail of mysterious manuscripts, Holden enters a world that makes him question his faith in science. Mm-hmm. And this movie gets 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't look to see how many reviews it has. I wouldn't give it 100, but I would give it a 90. I like it. I know that we disagree on that, but anyway, I just wanted to revisit it.
Well, that's awesome. And I think it was definitely a key or an influence on Roddenberry later on doing Spectre, the made-for-TV pilot that he wanted to do about, a British parapsychologist or supernatural investigator who gets called to a lord's manor home and all this stuff happens and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, cool.
Very 70s television, but a fun ride. So
nice.
Yeah, similar.
Start the car. Johnny has the keys.